Good afternoon. Happy Friday. This is usually a felonious Friday, which we will actually call it that. But what it really is part two of our Scott Peterson coverage from yesterday, wherein we were going over his newly filed, I think it was August 4th or so, post-conviction petition. And I am Bob Mata. I am your host. This is the docket presented by Defense Diaries. And I once again am joined by my beautiful and brilliant co-host against her will. It's much like me doing the Proctor Live. That's how Allie's feeling about doing this. No, actually, I exaggerate. She's game, man. She's always game. She's always
if I
game.
wasn't game, we likely wouldn't be here.
It's a true story.
But we were up, and I was like, Bob told me that there were a lot of people that tuned in for part one. It's like, 10,000 people have watched it so far. We got a lot of comments. I was like, all right.
Oh, wait.
Let's give the people what they want.
Speaking of this banter right here, I want to, I'm going to read a comment from yesterday's, from Replay Crew. I think you'll like it. I think you'll think it's pretty great. Okay. Wait for it though. I got to find it. It's a heartwarming comment, really. All right. I got to find this.
More proof that Bobby reads the comments.
Oh yeah. I read them every day. Every comment. I try to answer all of them.
While he's looking for that, why don't I just quick summarize what we did yesterday? Just the silver bullets. The first was the expert recantation about the gestational age of Connor and the time of death being after in January, not December, and during a time frame when it could not have been Scott Peterson, their own expert, reversing his scientific medical expert testimony. The second was the orchestrated destruction, where they talked about all of the systematic destruction of evidence, the judge having to, chastise the prosecution during trial for just not turning over discoverable material. And then there was the Brady violations. And we talked about the prosecutor's admissions on the record. Yeah, we just didn't turn this stuff over because we didn't like the defense investigator.
Okay. Is that all three of them? The three?
It is. And what we're going to get into now is the juice, the meat, the supporting evidence.
Yeah, I thought the bullets and before I read some of our love letters, I saw a ton of comments. I obviously saw a ton of tweets. Remember, what we're doing here in terms of analyzing this particular document is not making an argument for or against guilt or innocence. This entire analysis is about whether or not the man got a fair trial. Okay. Yes, there's an actual innocence claim. That's going to be rejected. Okay. So this is going
Maybe.
to boil down to no, not a chance.
I'm just saying
I'll
maybe.
bet you. I'll bet you.
I
Rejected.
mean, it's unlikely.
It's not happening. So I feel but the grander point is a lot of people are like, oh, he's guilty. Like, I'll never. All that may be true. All that may true. Like in terms of what they're going to be able to present, if he is granted a new trial, is compelling. I mean, there's a lot of coincidences. I don't really give a shit how the tides were moving. The fact that he, on Christmas Eve day, decides to take his little boat an hour and a half away, and it happens to be right around where his wife and his unborn child are found.
Highly suspicious.
Highly suspicious for you. For you. So, I mean, look,
suspicious.
there are a lot of things that coincidentally, I am not a like every case is Occam's razor because that's fucking bullshit. I know the prosecutors like, no, everything's not Occam's razor. We live in a crazy world. People do crazy shit, and everything's not Occam's razor. That concept is ridiculous.
Right. That everything is the most obvious answer is the right answer.
That's just not right. That is not right.
No, that's how we get all these wrongful convictions.
Yeah, ask the guys that did time on the yogurt shop murders most recently, like which broke that was somebody completely different. Occam's razor. They were down in the creek. They confessed. Dude, shut up. So, all right, here I'm going to read this because this is like was my favorite comment. So I'm not going to give the name because she knows who she is. She says, can you please add timestamps to when it actually starts? I know some people love the matrimonial banter, but I find it cringe and frustrating.
I was actually thinking that we need to put in the timestamps.
Well, I would love to do that. I would love to do that. Nobody's offered to do it. We at one point had a mod that was doing it, and like there has to be AI just goes through the live and puts in timestamps, right? It has to exist at this point.
I mean, it seems like it.
Yeah. So
it seems like I should be able to figure it out. Someone just has to tell me how to do it.
Not so much. I mean, like if you want to go watch a news channel, go watch a news channel, lady.
No, but she's got some points.
Wrong.
We do a lot of chatting before we jump in.
I don't give a fuck. It's our channel. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. Simple. Or fast forward. There's like a little slider. You can go boop to like write that shit and say that our banter is cringe. That's a big fuck you to us.
I could give a shit.
I mean, I don't really give a shit either.
You sound like you really care. It sounds like it really got you, really hit you right here.
I guess that's true.
I'm thinking, like I could give a fuck, but I actually understand her point. She doesn't like.
Wait, about the
banner
timestamps or the banter?
Well, both.
Yeah, I mean, then don't watch our channel though.
Right. But
there's not going to be a day where I'm never going to chat with
who else is going to give her the kind of legal analysis, the in-depth kind of legal analysis the two of us give.
Right.
So that's why she apparently puts up.
Right. And then you just use that little fucking slider and slide right past our blabbing. Simple.
I thought you really had like a heartfelt, I was going to love this comment. Hold on a second.
No, we get that shit all the time. Like, you know. People. Oh, and before we jump in, another gratuitous plug of our podcast, Buried Inside the John Wayne Gacy Investigation. Please, if you have not even listening to it, if you have downloaded and haven't listened, start listening. It is, I hate like patting myself on the back. I just want people to listen to it so they can say what it is.
Right. Well, a lot of people are, babe.
They are,
like
but
58.
We should have 100,000 downloads.
Hey, I agree.
The first episode.
I like when you let me say how amazing it is instead of you having.
I like that too, but you don't do it. So
I do too. But you know what? Sometimes you beat me to it.
Yeah. Well.
But you know,
in all fairness, everybody that is in our community that is on Twitter is amazing. Right. You guys are amazing. You are flooding Twitter with it. I cannot tell you how much we appreciate that, how much I adore you for doing that, for taking your valuable time. It means the world to us. It really, really does, because we just don't have a budget. We're not, like I've said a bunch of times, we're not a big media company. We don't have whatever it takes to get on the front page of Apple. So it's completely up to you guys. Completely. I could put out the greatest podcast of all time, which I think, frankly, it might be in the team picture. But if you guys don't find it, listen to it, follow it, and rate it, it means nothing. It
And
just doesn't.
LWFY 25. Bob Ruff is actually going to do something with Bob on this, right?
Well, Bob dropped it on his feed. Bob is a real friend.
Yeah.
Bob is a guy that, like him and I really support each other's work. I love Bob Ruff. I think Bob Ruff is a truly genuine human being, and I will support. And he gets out there and does shit. He doesn't sit behind a microphone and just talk about shit. So, the people that want to attack Bob Ruff can go fuck themselves, because I'm a big Bob Ruff fan, and he has never been anything but a gentleman to me. And I love his passion for what he does. So there's that. Additionally, and I'm going to leave it at this, when you guys leave the reviews, they're amazing. Like, some of the things that you guys have written are just beautiful, and they touch me so deeply. I can't even tell you. Yeah, True Crime Garage is really, and I know Patrick and I know Nick, and we've always gotten along well. They've never really hit me up to do anything with this. I think it might be because they have some kind of relationship with the prosecutors. Like, they were kind of the ramp for the prosecutors to kind of get big, because True Crime Garage, who was huge and still is huge, gave them some love early on. So that kind of ramped them up. I had Allie and I had a really good working relationship with them until they decided they hated us because we thought Richard Allen was innocent. And then recently I saw True Crime Garage had the Murder Sheet people on to plug their book.
So we're probably not in their repertoire.
Yeah, but it's a shame.
They got a branding thing.
They're misjudging. They're misjudging the right people to be dealing with. But that's just my opinion.
So many people are. So many people are.
I don't know how many people it is. All right, enough of this bullshit. Yeah. So the gal who left that comment, you're going to want to skip past all of this. Probably about 10 minutes of shit that you do not want to hear. But too bad. All right, so you want to get rocking and rolling, baby?
Yeah.
Oh, right. there's the first yawn.
It's 13 minutes. That's what she needs to fast forward through.
Okay, so we'll have to plug that in at the very beginning. Like, I'll pin it to the top. For those of you that hate our matrimonial banter, skip right to the 13-minute mark and we get to the meat of the matter. All right.
All right. 13:30 at this point. Okay. So we're getting to the supporting evidence. So the three silver bullets we heard about yesterday, any one of which could independently warrant relief. But that's not like the entire petition. It presents powerful new evidence that supports actual innocence, so the defense claims, and third-party culpability. Let's walk through the most compelling pieces of evidence. Babe, why don't you start us out with RZ's affidavit?
RZ's affidavit. Well, look, he is a guy that is related to, tangentially, maybe the burglary. All right. So in August of 2024, after the Netflix documentary airs, a person identified in the petition as RZ comes forward. RZ signs a sworn affidavit stating that RZ was present at the Medina burglary on December 24th of 2002, along with Stephen Todd and Glenn Pierce. I mean,
right. But according to RZ, while they were at the Medina's house burglarizing it, a pregnant woman approached them. She had a dog with her. She said something to the effect of, "What are you doing? I'm going to call the police." Stephen Todd told her to go home. So I just want to touch base here. All right. There's two different things. One, could these guys from the burglary have had something to do with it? And two, they saw her, which is like the other 14 or so people, after the time by which that her husband was supposed to have killed her. So, we talked about this sort of conflict yesterday with the concept of maybe these guys from the burglary had something to do with her going missing and then ultimately being unalived, and the time that the van was set on fire. So that those two
That's a
things,
problem,
that's
right?
a problem. But you just have to keep in mind, it doesn't matter. If they saw her and she confronted them, that's not the timeline that the prosecution has. She's supposed to be not alive anymore. She's supposed
Thank
to
you.
be in a truck getting taken to a boat.
Thank you. Well, I want to ask you this, honey, because you're far more knowledgeable about post-conviction work than I am. And if I'm in a so that concept that you kind of have to prove innocence.
Well, for actual innocence, you sure should do.
Right. But like, so in this situation where we've got the issues where, all right, we've got their primary expert as to the gestation period of Connor, and he's now retracted that, which theoretically it could change that timeline and make it so that the homicide of Connor happened after Scott was already like under surveillance and completely like under the eye of law enforcement, right?
It's
But
sure as shit something the jury should have had the
yeah, no,
ability
like
to
that's
hear
not
and
even the
balance.
point. Like, let
Right.
me
No, I
just
get you.
point out. So, how does that play out when we have this issue with the burglary? Because look, there is a world that exists where I could see that Laci does come upon these guys. These guys are like burglarizing a house. It appears to be in broad daylight on Christmas Eve day.
And not
Right?
to interrupt your point here, but RZ described the woman as visibly pregnant and matching Laci's description. The location matches across the street from the Peterson home, and the timing matches around 10:30 a.m. after Scott left for the fishing trip. So
Right.
go
So
on.
so that kind of lines up. And in this world, okay, where she does happen upon these guys, she does say something to that effect, and they're like, "Oh fuck, we gotta take her down," and they shove her in the van. Here's where, like, I could see a world in which that might happen. Like, typically burglaries, I mean, I guess they can go bad, but typically they go in just wanting to steal shit. They're not
Right.
trying to kill people in a
Right.
typical burglary. They're trying to get in, get out, get the shit, no problem. So here's where my giant issue is if we take the testimony or the affidavit of the new information
Burglar.
about the gestation period.
Oh.
Are you here to tell me that somehow that they held her captive for 7 to 10 days? Like that's where I kind of get lost in.
I mean, I think there's two possibilities. One, they just encountered her, showing she was alive afterwards and had nothing to do with it.
Okay.
Two, yeah, they didn't want to kill her. And, there was like some internal struggle. And then they eventually were like, well, we have no other choice. We've got to kill her. I mean, I don't know.
Will they keep her captive for 10 days?
Who knows?
I mean, where?
Scout's
What do you-
calling. I got to take this.
Like the super pregnant woman? I don't know. All right. So obviously the prosecution here is going to attack RZ's credibility, right? So he's coming forward 22 years later after something airs on Netflix. He's hearing facts. So we don't know if he has independent knowledge or not. He admits to being involved in the burglary. Why would we believe that person at all? Right? I mean, he's got real warts. Like, this isn't a dude who's just kind of coming forward out of the blue. It's after the Netflix thing drops, and look, why do people say that they do shit that they have nothing to do with? I have no idea. It is a part of psychology that I'll never understand, but there are people that claim that they did things that they absolutely had nothing to do with all the time.
Yeah, but don't forget that there's like RZ's account is corroborated by multiple independent sources from 2003. sources he didn't even know about. All those people who said they saw a pregnant woman in the park, they saw a pregnant woman walking a dog.
But the Netflix thing had dropped, and they interviewed all those people. That's what
I know. So, but that doesn't mean that. Why would he didn't need to admit to a burglary if he just wanted to get himself involved? He could have been like, "Oh, I too saw a woman in the park."
That's not nearly as compelling
Uh,
as saying I was one of the dudes. You know
well,
what I mean? He's just like another dude that's being discounted as like, well, it was obviously another pregnant woman walking her dog. Because that's basically a lot of like very normal people who claim to have seen her or somebody that looked like her with a large dog just were completely ignored and taken as like, it was too far from the house. She wouldn't have been walking. You know, I mean, it was like when he injects himself into the crime that was happening across the street,
but don't
it gives it
forget.
more weight in terms of, all right, you know, like this guy is basically confessing to something. He's putting himself in peril in terms of criminally being charged with this thing. So maybe it gives it, you know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Well, there was also this lieutenant who was who was a correction officer, and he corroborates some of this. He was a correction officer monitoring police calls at a rehab facility in January of 2003. He heard a recorded phone between two brothers, Sean and Adam Tenbrick. On that call, Adam told Sean, and this is on the petition, Adam told Sean that Laci happened to walk up while Stephen Todd was doing the burglary and that Todd made some type of verbal threat to Laci.
Yeah. And I mean, so there's this investigation. MPD knew about this. They're investigating. And then what happens? All the reports disappear. All the recordings were destroyed or suppressed. And the defense, they get a 2-sentence tip entry buried among thousands and thousands of tips.
Right.
Man.
But going back to this whole lieutenant that overheard this, that like that call was made before Laci's body had ever been found. No Netflix documentary. RZ hasn't come forward, and yet these Tenbrick brothers are talking about it on a recorded phone about Laci seeing the Todd doing the burglary. And that's supposed to be like, if I don't think there was anything released, but if it was, it would have been saying the burglary was 2 days later. So they would not have, wouldn't have been the day she went missing. So that's pretty huge, this call that he overheard. And he didn't just hear it and then like ignore it. On January 22nd, he called the Modesto police. This is again back in 2003, and reported it. He eventually spoke with a detective. The petition suggests it was probably Detective Gorgon, and this lieutenant provided the detective with either a copy or the contents of the recorded call. The detective asked this lieutenant to continue monitoring Sean Tenbrick's cause. He had further communication with Modesto Police Department, including about a second recorded call between Sean and his mother that also discussed Laci seeing Todd. So like you said, the Modesto police knew about this. They were investigating it. And then all those reports disappeared. All the recordings disappeared, just like you just, threw out there.
Yeah, that's one part of it. But the bigger part of it is they destroyed it. They got rid of all of it. They didn't turn it over to the defense. They threw the little tip in there, buried needle in the haystack style. So, these are the things where they're trying to pile on. And again, the analysis of whether or not Scott Peterson got a fair trial. And that doesn't just mean the trial itself. It's everything building up to it, right? So the entire process is the trial, for lack of a better term. Like the entire process leading up to trial, it all counts in terms of the analysis of whether or not he got a fair trial. So,
right. So as far as further corroboration, you have this in February of 2003, James Romano was incarcerated in a county jail in 2004 while Scott's trial was going on. So in July 2004, he started reaching out to law enforcement saying he had information. He reported that in February of 2003, he was at a friend's house and overheard a conversation in the garage. 5 or 6 men were talking about the Medina burglary, and one of the men said that Laci approached the van and told him if they didn't get out of there, she would call the cops.
I mean, so in February, again, before the trial, before most of the media attention, before anyone outside the investigation knew there was any connection between the burglary and Laci's disappearance, and yet Romano hears this conversation. So Romano tried to contact the defense team. His communications were blocked. The prosecution sat on his reports until October of 2004, 2 days before the close of evidence. 2 days.
And there is a part of Brady, and I think that it's actually cases interpreting Brady later. I can't remember if it's Brady itself that does talk about, that it's still considered suppressed if you give it to them too late to make any beneficial use of it. So 2 days before the close of evidence, that's got to be called like bullshit. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
know.
bullshit.
So you've got 3 independent sources for this new RZ in 2024. You got that lieutenant, I think it was Aponte in January
Aponte.
2003, this James Romano in February 2003, all saying the same thing. Laci encountered the burglars.
Yeah. I mean, and speaking of Laci, the other thing that they're talking about, the defense is what they consider to be very, very critical is the Croton watch. All right. And Laci's Croton watch was reported missing after her disappearance on December 31st of 2002, 7 days after Laci disappeared. A woman named Deanna Renfro pawned a gold Croton watch at the pawn shop in Modesto. It was the only Croton watch pawned in the previous 6 months. So that's a thing.
I mean,
Maybe.
it definitely seems like it.
Coinky dink. It's like a coincidence on the other side of it. Like these other things that happen.
I thought it was going to be like they had never pawned another Croton watch.
Ever.
Ever. This is the first and only. They get one every 6 months or so. Yeah. But detective, and I think this is Grogan again, knew about this. He found the pawn slip in March of 2006, but according to his trial testimony, he looked at it, saw it said the watch was scratched, and decided it didn't match Laci's watch and did no further investigation.
Wah, wah, wah. So here's the problem. That's not credible because Grogan spent 2 months searching for Laci's watch. He had officers photographing jewelry at multiple pawn shops. And then the only Croton watch pawned in 6 months, 7 days after she disappears, 2 miles from her house by an associate of the burglar. He does nothing.
Well, I almost forgot that point, that the petition sets out that this was an associate of the burglar. So that really ties the shit together.
Ties it together.
In 2024, investigators tracked down Sam Newman, the pawn shop owner. They conducted a filmed interview, and Newman says that the police contacted him about the watch. They told him it was the come on out. Oh, sorry, I forgot I didn't mute myself. So, fuck, man, this is, oh, Lord. They told him it was the only Croton watch in the system in the last 6 months. They told him they thought it might be Laci Peterson's watch. They asked him to put it on hold. And then, according to Newman, police came and looked at the watch, and he never even got it back.
I mean... what do you take of this? Like, to me, that seems like why didn't the cops take the watch and go to Scott first and foremost and say, is this Laci's watch? And then, all right, we don't fucking trust Scott. Of course he's going to say it's her watch. Let's go to her parents. Maybe they've seen her wear the watch. Hey, do you guys have any photographs with Laci with her arm up with the fucking watch? Like, why isn't anybody trying to do the work to see whether, or maybe somebody has the receipt for the Croton watch? Who bought the watch for her? Was it her folks? Was it Scott? When was it purchased? Could we get that receipt? I don't understand the watch thing, where that seems like that would be a pretty easy thing to track down. Because if that's true, unless
there's an association with the burglar.
Right. I mean, it's a thing. It's a thing. I mean, that is a direct link to Laci that is really, really hard to ignore, and it seems like just a modicum of police work. It's very Gacy-esque Chicago police style, what like that reminds me of. Like that seems like that would have been really easy to track down, but I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
I forgot to close the fucking.
Hey man, your mic's still on. You guys are getting hot mic action. I think my dad, he's walking out of the bathroom, so you're getting some hot mic action there from Papa Bob. Papa Bob.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Is he clear? We have the all clears.
Oh, he was clear, but then I forgot to close the door.
Okay.
And he can't hear me in there, so I have to, because when I try to be like, yeah, you're good, he's like, hey! So I have to scream back at him.
Yeah. So the police collected what they thought was Laci's watch from someone connected to the burglar, and then it disappears. And the defense never got photos of it, never got reports about it, never got any information about it. That's physical evidence linking the burglars to Laci's murder, and it was suppressed or destroyed. So when you're lumping this on top of the pile of shit that the prosecution was doing, it's starting to mount in terms of, did this guy get a fair trial?
Right. Did all the evidence get presented to the jury? Did they hear the full picture? So then you got these 15 witnesses we keep talking about. At trial, Detective Grogan was asked directly, do you consider any of the reported sightings of Laci? I don't even get. Do you consider any of the reported sightings of Laci on December 24th to be verifiable? His answer, no, ma'am. But first of all, I guess maybe verifiable is different than believable. I was expecting it to be like believable, but he says, no, ma'am, but that's a lie, because we know it's a lie because Detective Brocchini,
I'm guessing,
said the opposite
I
on December 25th, 2002. Just one day after Laci disappeared, there's a video of Brocchini at a press conference saying, we have credible witnesses who saw her. Now, look, credible witnesses and verifiable, are two different things. And verifiable is different than credible, to the sense that they should still be able to get on the stand and say, I think I saw someone who matched her description. I mean, at the Richard Allen trial, you had 3 people who never pointed to the defendant talk about a person they saw that looked different than a sketch and then a video that then they just inferred was Bridge Guy and was the defendant. So,
Yeah, I mean, but you're right. So the petition goes on to identify at least 15 people who reported seeing a pregnant woman matching Laci's description, walking a large golden retriever in the La Loma neighborhood on the morning of December 24th between 9:45 a.m., 11:30 a.m., after Scott has left for his fishing trip. 5 of those witnesses knew Laci personally. So you have the Aguilars, Frank and Martha, John Brazil, Mike Chiavetta, Vivian Mitchell. These weren't strangers guessing. They knew who Laci was, and they're saying, I saw her. The issue is going to be when. That's that part of that. Look, if you're Scott Peterson, hold on, if you're Scott Peterson and you didn't commit this crime, how much do you wish that they had fucking Ring cameras back in 2002? If Scott Peterson didn't commit the crime, how much do you wish that they had Ring cameras, like the random house here and there in the neighborhood, sees her walking when he's gone? I mean, the case never happens if, in fact, he didn't do it.
A lot.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like the people that knew her are very, very credible, especially when you're building their timelines, because the way that you're going to do that as an investigator, you're going to get their timeline for the day so that you can build up, okay, well, how do we know what time it was? And they'll say, okay, well, I just got done watching X, Y, and Z, and I went outside to do this, or, some event happens that they can have a timestamp for it, wherein the cops can say, all right, well, that's legit.
I mean, back then they made their time frame, like you said, between 9:45 and 11:30. Scott was gone at 9:30.
Yeah.
So
God.
the petition also includes new affidavits obtained in 2024 through 2024 and 2025 from a Homer Maldonado, a Helen Maldonado, and a Tony Frietas,
Mm,
I think.
yeah.
They describe reporting their sightings to police and being turned away or told they were wrong. Homer Maldonado says Sergeant Cloward told him he was wrong. Detective Procini turned away a witness who saw both Casey and a suspicious van at the Medina's house, telling him, "We've already got our guy."
Yeah, the burglary took place, right? I mean, like, that is
But I
being
saw
shown.
Laci and the suspicious van at the Medina's. Like, he saw both of the things.
I know. It's crazy. So then there's also a guy named Tom Harshman, a former reserve police officer for the Martinez Police Department. Harshman reported that on December 24th or 25th, between 2 and 4 p.m., he saw a pregnant woman who looked like Laci Peterson being pushed into an older white van by two men alongside a road near La Loma Park. A potential abduction reported by a former cop. And guess what? The cops didn't investigate it.
I
It's like,
just
I don't
I'm
get
just
it,
here
man.
thinking, how the fuck you see something like that and you don't call 911 right then and there?
Right.
How in the hell do you see anything remotely like a woman being pushed in a van and not just be like, "You know what? I'm just to be safe, I'm calling 911." Like, just in case that's exactly what it looked like.
I
It's
mean, so that's the early days of cell phones. That's like, like
yeah, it's true.
CrackBerry. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know who had cells back
Yeah,
then.
that's true.
Like that 2002. Like, I think you got me my first CrackBerry when we just got out of law school. And you're like, "Oh, here's a interesting device I'm gonna get you." Like, I don't know if I had a phone before that. Did we? Did we have like the old flippers maybe?
I mean, I definitely had a flip phone at some point before I
I mean,
ever
we
had
did
like a
we have cells and like cell phones in law school? That's a serious question. I do not remember whether or
I
not
don't
we
think
did.
so. Uh-uh.
Huh. That's weird. All right, I'm sure people in chat know.
We got out of law school in 2001, so I don't
I
think
know,
so.
that's what I'm saying. You got me that CrackBerry, like, in 2002.
And just in case there's people who don't know, Bob's referring to a BlackBerry,
Oh, yeah.
which was
Click,
I
click, click,
think,
click,
the
click. Yep.
first version of a smartphone.
Right. It definitely
Little
was.
little tablet in your hand for real,
Yeah, it made the little clacking
literally
noises when people loved it. That's why they called it a CrackBerry. They were addicted to that sound that sounded kinda like you were typing on a
typing on
keyboard.
a
Click, click, click,
keyboard.
click. Yeah, so but yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, your point is well taken, though, but they say he reported it. I don't know what that means. Like, did he report it immediately? Like, "Hey, man, I just saw some shit," and they ignored it? Or does he come forward later and say, "Hey, I saw something that looked kinda weird
Well,
that
he was
day."
they said he was turned away from oh, no, that wasn't the guy turned away? I don't know.
I
But yeah,
mean, they
you're
just
right,
didn't investigate it. They
I
just
guess he
didn't
could
invest.
have
Yeah.
called it. Yeah, but then they would know precisely what day he called it in. It says the 24th or the 25th. To me, that means he's telling somebody days after where he's
Yep.
not even sure of the day.
Astute,
So,
babe, astute.
yeah. All right, so then we've got the petition also includes an expert affidavit from a Dr. James Lampinen.
Lampinen, maybe?
Lampinen,
Yeah.
a cognitive psychiatrist who specializes in eyewitness memory and identification. He did a statistical analysis and estimated that in all of Modesto, a city of over 200,000 people, there were probably about 7 pregnant women who walked golden retrievers. 7. What in the fuck is happening? This is like some crazy shit now. We got cognitive psychologists, sorry, estimating the statistics of about how many people could have been walking a pregnant woman Walking a
Pregnant
golden
woman
retriever.
walking a dog. Yeah, it's
No. A golden retriever, babe.
right.
So that's 7.
Well,
That's
how like
I
how did we
didn't
come
delve
to all
into it
yeah, like,
all that
we gotta
much.
look into that a little bit more, see, like, how he was able to come up with
You want
the
me to pull it up?
I mean, it wouldn't hurt.
All
I
right,
mean, because
let's
that's
see.
kind of compelling.
I mean, I think it sounds a little much, but
It sounds a little
sounds
look,
like they got a psychic.
that's why it's deeper down into the petition, you know what I mean?
Lamp, let me see, lamp in
I'm not
limb.
gonna say it's like having a psychic give some kind of affidavit. "Well, I had
All
I
right,
had a vision.
here
I
we
saw a
go.
woman, very pregnant, who looked very much like Laci Peterson walking a golden retriever. I seen it." All right, yeah, if you wanna pull that up, I'll
I
move
do. I
on
have it up.
to
I have it
oh,
ready.
okay, let's
I
go.
almost forgot that it wasn't shared. I was about to start reading from it. We ready to go, Joe. All right. So I think you can read this to people. I'll just
Oh, and
stand
by the
in.
way, if you guys are wanting to pull this up yourselves and look at it, you know we're a great place to do that.
Mm,
Seeking Justice.
seeking justice, you say.
Seeking Justice. That is exactly where you can find documents like this.
This
Because
must be where how we got it from Tracy of
oh,
Seeking Justice.
no way.
She
No
sent
way.
it to us.
Amazing. All right, which part do you want me to read? The beginning part?
Part about Dr.
Okay,
James.
so Dr. Lampinen is a distinguished professor and chair of the Department of Psychological Sciences at the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and a nationally respected expert on eyewitness memory. So Lampinen undertook a painstaking review of 11 eyewitness accounts, ignored by the police in this case. Witnesses who reported seeing Laci. Hey, love. How's school? I love you.
You can
Uh,
come down and say hi to me.
did you hear, Mom? Uh, okay, so he prepares a detailed report on his findings. His report and CV are attached as Exhibit 16. So, as Lampinen explains, multiple eyewitnesses reported seeing Laci Peterson on the morning of December 24th walking a golden retriever or a dog whose description is generally consistent with a golden retriever in a cluster of sightings that all occurred within a relatively constrained geographical area. Oh, too high. You went too high. I was still reading that part. You scrolled by. Oh, she's probably gone. She gone. All right. Babe. She's gone. She's gone. She left. She like scrolled past what I can see on the screen. Wow. Okay. All right. So I'll skip that part. Familiarity with Laci Peterson, who would have been a fairly distinctive being more than 7 months pregnant and walking a good sized dog, who itself was distinctive looking. Ibid. So Lampinen conducted a Bayesian analysis of the eyewitness reports. And in his opinion, when multiple witnesses all make the same identification, the probability of what they reported actually occurred increases substantially, even when any individual witness would not be very convincing. So I don't know where why would she put the document up and then leave? Like that's crazy. All right, so there's that. All right. So I don't know if she wanted me to read more, but I'm moving on. So moving on to if she wants us to get back to it, I'll get back to it. But we're going to move on to the van with the fire with the blood evidence. Now, this was kind of the first thing that we started to hear about months back. And this is where the big fight happened in court, wherein they're trying to get various items tested in terms of DNA testing. Okay. And I think they ended up only being allowed to test one particular thing. So on December 25th at 2002 at 8:30 a.m., the morning after Laci was reported missing, a distinctive orange van was found intentionally burned in the airport district near where Todd and Pierce lived. So we already have a problem there because like most people are saying it was a white van that they saw her getting tossed into. Here we have an orange van. and a distinctive one at that. So that's an issue for me. So the van had been stolen from a facility that employed ex-cons with airport district connections, and it had a blood-stained mattress in the back that tested presumptively positive for blood. So a witness reported seeing Todd and his associates driving that orange van before it was burned. So that kind of makes up for it, but it hurts the eyewitness testimony because we've got some connection with these dudes in this orange van, but several people say that the van, especially like the more credible witnesses, like the cop, he said it was a white van, right? And cops are trained to be observant. So I don't know how that plays out.
Sorry, Scarlett fell down the stairs while she was coming down to say, "Give me my hug."
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, I did the best I could. I moved past where I was reading and then I couldn't read anymore. So I moved on. So another witness, CH, reported to Brochini that he saw a suspicious van at the Medina's house on the morning of December 24th. The fire investigator determined it was arson, intentionally set to destroy evidence, but most of the investigation was suppressed. The defense didn't get the color photos of the bloodstained mattress, the videos of the forensic examination, or Detective Shipley's full investigation report until 10 years after the conviction.
So 3 crimes in 24 hours. Laci disappears on December 24th, the Medina burglary on September 24th, and the van fire on December 25th, all in close proximity. Lieutenant, now we've got another one, Berkovicki. What do you think? Oh, he's probably dealing with Scarlett now. The retired LAPD detective says there was no coordination among the investigation and calls it a quote from the petition, serious investigative failure. So then we've got the oceanography evidence. And we haven't talked about this one yet, but it's claim number 2. At trial, the prosecution's oceanography expert, Dr. Cheng, testified that based on tidal currents, the bodies were likely placed in the bay near Brooks Island, where Scott went fishing, and drifted to where they were found. So the petition includes an expert declaration from a different doctor, a professor at Texas A&M who specializes in coastal ecology and tidal hydrodynamics, and he used state-of-the-art computer modeling software, the same software used by the Army Corps of Engineers for critical infrastructure decisions. And his modeling shows that bodies placed near Brooks Islands would have drifted north towards Richmond, not south to where they were found. The modeling shows the bodies were actually placed at the Albany Bulb, a former landfill peninsula with land access. You don't need a boat. So Scott had no vehicle access after December 26th when police seized his truck. He couldn't have placed the bodies at the Albany Bulb, but the burglars have. That's the position the defense has taken this position. There's also red algae found on Laci's remains. Red algae grows in shallow water near shore, like at the Albany Bulb. It doesn't grow in deep bay waters where Scott went fishing. The prosecution never explained that at trial.
Interesting.
So, and I know we touched on it, babe, procedural bars, but it's really the whole crux of whether or not somebody gets relief, regardless of what they say, no matter how compelling what is written down or the new evidence or whatever it is. The procedural bars are a difficulty. If you don't get past, they never, ever look at it. So talking like comprehensively about how the petition overcomes every procedural bar. Remember, the prosecution is going to throw up every procedural obstacle they can think of. They're going to argue it's untimely. You could have raised this earlier. This is a successive petition, meaning he's already filed something outside of the direct appeal. You're rehashing old claims. So let's address each one.
Right. So as far as the timeliness goes, it's pretty straightforward, right? The petition was filed in August of 2025. The most critical evidence was discovered between August of 2024 and January of 2025. Filing within a year of discovery is textbook timeliness. But let's recap the key dates. So you got Dr. DeVore's recantation regarding the gestation period. That happens in 2024. Okay, you have RZ's declaration, which happens in August of 2024.
That's the third guy associated with the Medina burglary.
Right. You have Sam Newman, or Newman, or Newman, Newnam, Newnnam, his interview. That takes place in 2024. Then you have all the eyewitness declarations. Those all come in between 2024 and 2025.
There's the three new ones, yeah.
Right. And then you have the discovery of the May 6th through 7th orchestrated destruction. And that wasn't found out until January of 2025.
And for the scientific evidence, yeah, we discussed this earlier yesterday, that the studies were published between 2015 and 2022, but Dr. Dublé didn't apply them until 2024. And Dr. DeVore, that's the prosecution's expert who testified at trial, didn't recant until 2024. You can't bring a claim that the expert recanted until the expert recants. So for the destruction claims, you can't bring a destruction claim or a claim about destroyed evidence when the prosecution hid that destruction from you for 22 years. We said it yesterday. The clock starts when you discover the destruction, not when it occurred. I mean, especially if you're out there looking still, and it does look like they've been active through all of this since the Supreme Court denied his appeal in 2020.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you kind of look at the issue of whether or not any of this could have been raised earlier, this bar doesn't apply because these claims are based on new evidence that didn't exist at trial or on direct appeal.
And that's what the petition itself argues. We'll
Right.
have to wait and see what the prosecution says back.
Right. So if they have to answer, remember, it may not even make it to that. That's a possibility. But based on what we're seeing, I'd be surprised if the court wasn't like, okay, you guys are going to need to respond to this. Because
Yeah, and like we said yesterday, the court was supposed to, their timeline was up, that they were supposed to have an answer on this, whether they're just dismissing it or making the state show cause why it shouldn't be granted or why it shouldn't go to hearing. So something's going on behind the scenes. But
Yeah.
sorry, I interrupted you on the issues the state might claim as the petition sets it
Right.
out.
So, I mean, they're going to state that scientific studies were published after trial and their application to this case didn't occur until 2024. RZ didn't come forward until 2024. The witnesses didn't give sworn declarations until 2024 or 2025. So the destruction, again, wasn't discovered until 2025.
Right. And then we have all the Brady claims we talked about yesterday. It's based on evidence that existed but was suppressed, and the law is clear. You can't be faulted for failing to raise a claim when the prosecutor hid the evidence. Boom. If they destroyed the videos and covered it up, you raise the claim when you discover the destruction.
Right.
Now, the whole successive petition, I was like having a little bit of difficulty. The petition is so long. Trying to figure out if he really even filed another claim after the direct appeal. There was like something he filed, but then they never heard it. They sent it back down. They asked for time to appeal it. But I don't know. Go through it the best we could tell from the petition itself.
All right. So there's California Penal Code section 1387.1 says courts can deny successive petitions unless you show good cause why the claims weren't raised before. Now, good cause here is that the evidence didn't exist or hadn't been discovered. You can't raise Dr. DeVore's recantation in 2015 when he didn't recant until 2024. Can't raise RZ's testimony in 2015 when RZ didn't come forward until 2024.
And the successive petition bars exist to prevent abuse, holding back known claims and filing petitions after petition, like one after the other. It's not to punish defendants for discovering new evidence years later.
Yeah.
So again, what we're reading is how the defense is presenting what they found, when they found it, and why they think they overcome the bars. Once we see what if, again, if, because if the Supreme Court says, nah, too bad, too sad, you didn't establish enough for us, I'm not even making the state respond, then this goes no further. But otherwise, we'll see what the state says and how they paint all of these same facts and address all of these issues raised. But, babe, let's turn to their actual innocence claim.
Yeah, and that is claim number 14. And look, even if there were procedural issues, okay, the petition has what the defense considers to be a trump card, claim 14, which is the actual innocence gateway. And this comes from Supreme Court cases like Schlupp versus Dello and House versus Bell and McQuiggan v. Perkins. And the principle that comes from those cases that if you make a credible showing of actual innocence, procedural bars don't apply.
So, and that standard is it's more probable than not that no reasonable juror would have convicted in light of the new evidence. That's not the standard for ultimate relief. That's just this prima facie opening, to get through the opening of the procedural gate. The Peterson petition makes that showing. This is how they claim that they have made that showing. Consider all that new evidence together, that the death occurred January 1st to January 5th. Now, again, they're supposed to accept this as true for the purposes of this. And
That's an important thing to remember. And when she
Right.
says they, she's talking about the court. So everything that they proffer in terms of this petition, the court, when they view it in their minds, has to view it as if it was true.
And that's just to get to the next step of a long process. It's not to get to a success. Once you get to a hearing, it's just like any other trial. If it's wishy-washy, if it's not established, a whole different story. If it's not credible, if the court doesn't believe it, all that comes into play. But for right now, just deciding whether it should be tossed away, I can't speak, babe.
Just skip the word, hon.
If it should get dismissed on its face right now, they assume everything is true. So you've got the death occurred between January 1st and January 5th when Scott was under surveillance, scientific evidence that he could not be responsible because of that time frame. Bodies placed at Albany Bulb, not where Scott fished, also scientific evidence. Laci confronted the burglars after Scott left home. You've got RZ, the investigator, and then one of the other detectives on that. You've got 15 witnesses who saw Laci alive after Scott Peterson left. You've the burglars had Laci's watch. That one, I think the courts could say, but you didn't even establish that.
Right.
You just established they had a watch. It's not like the court has to say, you're telling me that it was Laci's watch, but you didn't put enough evidence to prove it's Laci's watch. I'm going to assume it's Laci's watch for these purposes. It doesn't go that far, right? But it would go as far as to say you had evidence that very circumstantial evidence that it was her watch. And, if the jury considered that in conjunction with everything else, could no reasonable juror. I don't think that alone, that's one of the weak ones there. The fire van with the blood evidence,
See, I
that
think that
also
one's
might be
weak
weak.
too,
Right.
because and you weren't there. So this van is a distinctive orange color, the fire van.
Right.
Okay. And some of the more compelling and credible witnesses, like namely
That
the cop, Romano, he said it was white. We had multiple witnesses saying it was a white van. So I don't know. That's a really powerful point either, but you're just throwing everything against the wall and see what sticks.
Right. And that the police destroyed evidence proving the burglary connection. But
Well, I mean, look, when you put it all together, the defense feels that, look, this is definitely a situation where it's more probable than not that no reasonable juror would convict. And therefore, it opens the gateway. All procedural bars fall away.
But
So,
again, we're not saying that that right there makes you win. Even if all the procedural bars fall away, that just means
next
you
step.
get a hearing. Right.
Right.
Right. Or you get them to respond and maybe still don't get a hearing. But um, I would think if all the procedural bars fall and it's possible you're getting a hearing. So here's what makes the petition very strong. Okay. It doesn't rely on one claim or one piece of evidence, which none of these ever do. Okay. That's not unusual. It's not special, but still, it's got 14 separate claims, multiple independent grounds for relief, and layered fallback positions. That whole cumulative evidence, cumulative error argument we talked about before. Um, I just lost my complete train of thought. Okay, so if you're skeptical of RZ, and again, at this stage, you don't weigh credibility about RZ. You just accept it as true. Zero credibility analysis. But then you still have Dr. DeVore's recantation. That one, very strong. Think the gestational age is uncertain. Like yesterday, we had a very intelligent, well thought out, well spoken person in chat who's like, look, I think that that's still like a vague thing. It's not concrete, but I also think it's something the jurors should have heard. So he should get a new trial. But does it prove his actual innocence, which is what we just talked about earlier, was the actual innocence claim? No. But you even if you find that uncertain, you still have all that destruction of evidence. Do you think the destruction was negligent and not intentional? Well, you still have the prosecutor's admission on the record of intentional suppression. We didn't turn it over because we didn't want to. Whatever. And if you're worried about the timeliness or the other procedural bars, you've got this actual innocence gateway.
So, yeah, I mean, you got to look at it kind of like a castle that has multiple walls, okay, before you can get to the castle itself. You got to get through the moat, you got to get through the walls, and this thing is like that. It's got multiple walls. Even if one wall fails, there are more walls behind it, and that amounts to a pretty sophisticated habeas petition.
Right. And again, it's what they do in all of these, habeas petitions, because you've got to have those because one wall's going to fall. This is not designed to be an easy avenue to relief. It is designed to be one of the hardest avenues to relief. So, all right. So what happens here? Let's walk through the step-by-step process of what happens next.
Yeah, I mean, the way that it's going to go down, we're at the current stage, and this is the initial review stage, and the court is screening the petition to decide whether it states a prima facie case. Remember, that's a low bar, just whether the allegations, if true, would warrant relief. Given the strength of this petition,
In
the
our
expert,
estimation.
right? Yeah, in our estimation. So, in terms of the strength of the petition, you've got the expert declarations, aka affidavits, the witness statements, the documentary evidence. It's highly unlikely, in my opinion, the court will summarily. No, I can't say it. Summarily.
Yeah. Summarily.
Summarily. Yeah, summarily. Deny it. And I mean, that's my opinion. That could be worth, 2 nickels, and you can't buy shit with that these days. So,
But the most likely outcome is an order to show cause, where the court will find that the petition states that prima facie case and order the prosecution to respond formally. And then that response is typically due 60 to 90 days after issued. You're talking about a 695-page petition. I filed one. This made me feel so much better about the one that I filed. And the state had asked for another 3 months yesterday. So,
there you go.
yeah.
There's your answer. So yeah, in terms of the prosecution's response, if it gets to that stage, once the OSC is issued, okay, the prosecution has to file what's called a return, their formal response, and they'll do several things. They'll challenge the factual allegations. They'll argue that RZ is incredible. They'll say that the witnesses are mistaken. They'll question the timing. They'll challenge the legal sufficiency. They'll argue that the claims don't meet the legal standards, even if the facts are true. They'll raise procedural bars. They'll argue timeliness, could have been raised earlier, successive petition, and they'll probably include counter declarations from their own experts disputing Dr. Dublé, and Dr. Fegan.
And I just don't know if they can. Like we said yesterday, for those of you that were here, I don't think, and it's not like something that I've researched, but just like our common knowledge of the law, they put on Dr. Is it DeVoe?
Dublé?
No, the one the
DeVore.
prosecution put on. DeVore.
Yeah.
And again, we mentioned this yesterday. DeVore is who they laid that whole foundation for, whose credibility they built up, who the jury heard, all right, this is his background, this is his history, and this is why I'm going to believe him. I'm going to believe him based on the way he presented. I'm going to believe him based on his background and his history. Them saying, but we found another guy to say it. Maybe that would work on a actual innocence claim only, right? On an actual innocence claim only, them saying, well, nah, because this guy says no. Maybe that would work there. But when we're talking about a due process claim, did the jury hear the truth? Was the science they relied on and the expert relied on to give his opinion faulty? Did he literally change his mind? Yes. So for the due process claim, I don't see, and we'll have to wait for the response, but I just don't see how relying on a different expert's affidavit's really, really going to help them. But, after they file their response, then the defense files again. They file their reply to the prosecution's response. They'll address the prosecution's argument. They'll provide additional evidence if needed, and they'll explain why, even over and above, because they did a lot of that here. And, we pulled what we provided to you from their petition. They fronted that here. But whichever procedural bars the state wants to say, no, we still think these apply, they'll address that directly and say why no, they shouldn't apply.
Yeah. And so if everything is filed, the court looks at it and they say, all right, we're not going to grant relief outright, meaning we're not going to give them a new trial. The more likely thing, and I think what the defense is really looking for, what they really want to happen, is an evidentiary hearing. And this is where the case really gets developed, because at that evidentiary hearing, witnesses testify live under oath. Experts are subject to cross-examination, where their opinions and how they reach those opinions can be challenged by the other side. Both sides could subpoena witnesses and documents. Physical evidence can be examined. The court makes credibility determinations, and the burden shifts from the petitioner to prove claims by preponderance of the evidence.
Right. So, and that's critical. It's also critical because the subpoena power kicks in, and the defense can subpoena the detective to explain that May 6th and 7th destruction, the detective Bracchini to explain why he basically lied about the eyewitnesses. At least that's the way the defense is presenting it right now. Is there a difference, like I said earlier, between saying someone's credible and verifiable? I mean, how often is a person's eyewitness account verifiable over and above their eyewitness account? But, so be it. They could to subpoena the detective to explain the hiding of those videos, the one that kept them in his personal possession. You remember we talked about that yesterday.
Yeah.
And all the records from San Mateo's district attorney office related to that May 6th meeting, and any remaining physical evidence for forensic testing.
And RZ testifies. The prosecution can cross RZ. If RZ's testimony holds up, that's devastating. If it doesn't, that claim might fall. But you still have 13 others. Dr. DeVore testifies live. Prosecution cross-examine. If he holds firm that new evidence is better and his opinion has changed, that's even more powerful than him writing it on a piece of paper and signing it.
Right. The evidentiary hearing could last days or even weeks, depending on how many witnesses are called and how much evidence is presented.
All right. So, babe, if there is a hearing that's granted and this hearing takes place, what are the possible outcomes?
So, I mean, after the evidentiary hearing, the court issues a written decision with findings and conclusions of law, and the possible outcomes include deny all claims. The court finds a petitioner hasn't met their burden on any claim, conviction stands. Grant some claims. The court grants one or more claims and orders a new trial or other relief. They grant the petition on multiple grounds and order a new trial. So, that's basically the same as the other. Or, and this is very rare, very, very rare, the court finds that the prosecutorial misconduct was so egregious that a fair trial is impossible and they dismiss it altogether. Or they find that the actual innocence claim is so strong that we are finding this man to be actually innocent, dismiss everything. Those are very unlikely outcomes. I think it's going to be that if it gets to that point, to me, even getting a new trial is a huge win. Like, that's what I want to say is what I think the outcome will be. But this is just reading the defense's pleading, so everything looks shiny and bright and possible.
Right. We gotta wait till we see what the state's response.
And I'm always rooting for a new trial.
Fair trial.
I honestly do think it's possible that this guy is innocent. But that's
Without
just
even
like,
getting to that. I don't think he had a fair
I'm not
trial.
afraid to say it. I'm not afraid to say it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm as convinced as you are, but
I don't know either. I'm just, to
what
be
I am
honest,
pretty convinced about is he didn't get a fair trial. But in this petition doesn't even talk about the media, the Nancy Graces of the world.
Well, it might.
Unequivocally got this guy as public enemy number one, with a nightly barrage if he's the worst human being on the planet, therefore he's a murderer. I mean, that part of it for me just does not sit well with me ever. Not just in this case, in any case.
And I'm sorry because they did mention it. I just didn't put it in like our little summary here. So for one, I'll talk about one little piece of it right now. And I think this is in a footnote, if I'm right. Yeah, so it's footnote 30, which is really long, and I'll pull up the petition so that you guys can see what I'm reading, because I love you, those of you who like to read along.
Aw.
Wait, it's still down here. I don't need to do that. So right here. So, whoop, I hit the wrong button. My God. Okay. So footnote 30 is right here. So it says the judge, I'm just gonna say the judge, the experienced county judge who presided over the pretrial observed, in my 30 years in this community, I've not seen anything like the publicity generated by this case. So this is under the defense motion for change of venue. So this might be under just like the procedural history and not a specific claim.
I mean, I went through the claims in terms of the index of the brief, and I didn't see.
Yeah, this is under the procedural history. So they mentioned Nancy Grace there, but there was some more. Let me just see where else they mention it. No, that might be it. So it was just in the procedural history.
Yeah, no.
Here we go. The new evidence that law enforcement leaked false stories to reporters about there being the smell of bleach in the Petersons' home when police responded to missing persons report 6:30 p.m. on December 24th. And it says, see The Murder of Laci Peterson, Media Frenzy, Season 1, Episode 2, and some more sites there. But includes that Gloria Gomez stating on camera that investigators, quote, did share a lot with me as far as what was going on behind the scenes, and that she learned early about pieces of evidence, including the bleach. See also Larry King, Nancy Grace, guest host, Peterson hearing, day 3. So they are talking about, and that's not the last time it's mentioned. So it did come in. Hey, look at that guy.
Hey, how you doing? How's it going?
And this is under the detective testifying falsely. So
Is
it kind of,
that a picture of Broccini there? Did they find the goofiest picture they could find?
all right, so I think that might have been it.
All right. So, and yeah,
Let me see if
Deidre,
that
you're
is
right.
him.
You
Let me
can't
tell you
like,
who it is now that we did all this.
all right, well, let me address this comment that I keep trying to address.
Oh,
Like,
sorry.
so 100%. Like, we don't want reporters being stifled. It's like we need free press, right? So that goes without saying. However, the bottom line is if that free press, which is so very important, affects the ability of a defendant to get a fair trial, I mean, that's the price we pay for freedom, right? So you can't have it both ways. You can't have reporters can report on anything that they want, but if that reporting ends up resulting in somebody not getting a fair trial because of their reporting, well, you've got this battle.
Right, and the
there's a
petition's
constitutional right to a fair trial as well.
right, and the petition's alleging this officer leaked knowingly false information. So that's the reason that's being mentioned.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing.
In that vein.
That's a whole different thing.
So
I'm just talking about the concept of, trial by media, which just happens in high profile cases. So,
all right. So let's talk about what would happen at a new trial. What might a new trial look like?
be crazy. That would be crazy. That's what it would look like. Crazy. If the court does order a new trial, the prosecution has to decide whether to retry Scott Peterson, which they will.
I don't know.
I mean, look, I get it. It's a tough decision because the second trial would be completely different from the first. At a new trial, the defense would have Dr. DeVore testifying that the death occurred January 2nd when Scott was under surveillance.
Now, I just want to comment here because I keep saying, well, the prosecution can't rely on the fact that they got another guy now to say, even based on the new evidence, that they're sticking with the first opinion. They can do that at a new trial for sure. But when we're talking about the question of should he get a new trial, that's where everything I said about the jury judged DeVore's credibility. The jury based their decision on his background, his training, his
nail in the coffin.
Right. But at a new trial, prosecution can call whoever the hell they want. But then they're going to have you testify. They're going to have the defense calling their first expert. So,
Yeah. And then you'd have Fegan's oceanography showing bodies where Scott fished. You'd have RZ testifying that Laci confronted the burglars. You'd have Aponte and Romano testifying about their 2003 reports. 15 eyewitnesses testifying that Laci was alive after Scott left, which the jury would get to judge their credibility. It's not for a cop to decide whether or not they're credible. It's for a jury to decide whether or not they're credible. And the prosecution can test those witnesses on cross-examination. And then the jurors can independently make their own decision whether or not the 5 people who know who Laci is and what she looks like, saying that they saw her at that time frame, whether or not they're going to disregard it. So, I mean, that's powerful shit. You'd have Noonan testifying that the police took the watch. You'd have evidence of the van fire with the blood in it.
Maybe if they let that in.
If that gets in, right? The evidence that the police destroyed the videos and the safe the day after the meeting about the discovery, and the evidence the prosecutor admitted intentionally suppressing evidence. That's
if they let
that. A majority of that will come in. Some of it's, obviously going to be battled about what comes in, what's not coming in. But, that's why they have the entire process. That's why I always say, all of the pretrial hearings and motions that are filed is where the real war is fought, because that ultimately determines what's going to be admissible at trial itself.
Right. And they would have, it would be a new trial. So new motions and lemonade, all these things would be decided, So, right. Like you're saying, babe, it's a completely different case. And the prosecution would have to overcome a mountain of reasonable doubt, in my estimation. Okay. that still doesn't say whether he's guilty or not. I'm just saying I think there's reasonable doubt, based on the little that I know. And again, I'm basing this on, documentaries that I've watched and on a complete defense pleading, which again looks all shiny and beautiful until somebody comes in and challenges it. So,
Right.
I'm keeping myself in check as well by kind of mentioning that. But remember, the burden is at a new trial is beyond a reasonable doubt. So even if one juror has a reasonable doubt and it's hung, then they'd have to decide, are they doing it again? The again.
Yeah, yeah. The again. And I mean, things that the prosecutors have to think about are the political and ethical implications if they retry and lose the case. It's basically an admission that they wrongfully convicted an innocent man. And if they offer a plea deal, say, for instance, time served for manslaughter, that's essentially an admission that the murder convictions can't be sustained. So,
And look, you see that happen in these cases, but I will go out on this limb and say, if they made that offer after the motion for a new trial was granted, so you're getting your new trial, Scott Peterson, I can't imagine in a million years. But I don't know. I don't know what they know. I don't know what his lawyers would say. This is just my humble opinion that he would agree to a lesser plea that let him out. Now, if it's before he's granted a new trial and he thinks he might not be granted a new trial, that's when you get these situations where people decide, you know what, fuck it. I'll just plead out. As long as I'm getting out, I'll take time served on whatever and get out. But
yeah.
the other factor is the media environment. In 2004, Scott Peterson was universally hated. We all know this. The coverage was relentless. It was impossible to get an impartial jury. But now in 2025, 2026, it might even be later than that if you actually got a new trial. There's been the Netflix documentary raising questions, the LA Innocence Project, one of the a very respected organization in the country, even though it's not the Innocence Project. Public opinion is shifting, as we see from the chat. It's not universally shifted, but there's definitely now people like, wait a minute. Did I, at least people saying, did I hear the full truth? I want to hear the full truth. I have an open mind. That's at least, my view of where people stand right now. So a jury in whatever year this would take place is going to be much more skeptical of the prosecution than a jury was in 2004.
Yeah, 100%. There's no question. I think there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, there's people that still hate Scott Peterson, plenty of them. I mean, you see it in our chat. Like, I hate him, burn in hell, you fucking scumbag. But I think there's also people that I've seen in the past couple days, especially since we did our live yesterday, that are like, wow, like I don't know whether the guy's innocent or guilty, but I do believe that he didn't get a fair trial.
Right.
And
So
that's a major accomplishment. Like, people
yeah.
starting to understand the difference, that they're two completely separate things. You can have somebody who's guilty, who actually committed a crime, and that person can still not get a fair trial, in which that person actually gets a second trial, even though he did what they said that they did.
And he gets convicted again.
And he gets convicted again. So, I mean, they're just separate things. So,
Right. But let me
and that
go over
analysis
this
matters.
timeline then of
All
what
right.
we're looking at right here. Because again, the Supreme Court was already supposed to either dismiss or issue the rule to show cause. Again, that the order to show cause, saying the prosecution has to respond. So that could come any day now. I can't imagine it being any later than early 2026. It's going to come any day, I think. And then the prosecutor gets to file their response. I think they could end up asking for an extension. I don't think that 60 or 90 days will be it. But, let's say that they respond in 2006, and then the, defense responds. There could be an evidentiary hearing either in 2006 or 26 or 27. And then, there could be a new trial within, who knows? It could take a couple of years. It could take less. So,
Yeah, I
but
mean, potentially it's a couple, 3 years. I mean, look, the wheels of justice turn slowly. That's just a fact. It's
Yep.
like, it's how this shit goes. You know, it's like you get, as a defense attorney, you get some piece of evidence, newly discovered evidence comes in. You're like, holy shit, it's clear as my guy, you know, and you're still fighting it for 2 years. You know, you got to go through the process, and the process is just slow.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's basically our summary of it. You know, I think that I thought that it was obviously a lot of work went into that petition. You know, I think that they dug up a lot of pretty compelling things, and I think that there's some real problems for the state. You know,
Yeah.
bottom line.
I mean, it says a lot about like tunnel vision and wrongful convictions
Yeah.
in general. You know, like some takeaways from our criminal justice system, babe.
Yeah, I mean, look, we preach about this shit all the time over here. You know, I mean, the fact of the matter is that there are wrongful convictions. They exist in the world, you know, and I mean, the bottom line is that the petition includes a detailed analysis of something called confirmation bias and tunnel vision. We talk about that constantly over here in criminal investigations. It's just a fact. It happens. I mean, human beings, when they land on an opinion, that thing becomes immovable. And you see it all the time with law enforcement. And you know, because they're human beings. And so, based on peer-reviewed
Like
research
in
in the
this
last 10 to
petition,
15
right?
years, right? You know, there's a showing of how cognitive biases lead to wrongful convictions. You're like,
Right.
like that was not even a fucking thing. Like the defense bar and just the concept of wrongful convictions, which is so hard for some people to understand. I don't understand why. It
And
has
judges
come
and
such a
cops and
long way.
prosecutors to acknowledge. I mean,
Well,
still.
that's still the same shit. I'm talking about the general public now,
Oh yeah.
you know, and with the help of cases like Karen Reed and Richard Allen and, you know, just everything that we're seeing with the corruption that occurs within law enforcement and just how many cases they get wrong. And when you've got the two, like the technology that we have now with DNA, and you just see convictions being overturned, you can't help but think, all right, there are wrongful convictions in this world because it's a fact. And it's frustrating for me when I see it, and people are just reticent about admitting that. Like I don't understand it, but like I think that maybe it's easier for people to say, "Oh, well, they got them all right." You know, they're just like everybody in there deserves to be in there, and that's just not true. It's just not true.
Right. So the petition does talk a lot about this. They've got a count or a sub count that says new evidence shows that petitioner was convicted because of MPD's missing person investigation was disorganized, failed to follow basic police procedures, and was driven by confirmation bias. So it sets out that sorry, I was glancing at reading the actual title there, so I lost my train of thought, but that the National Registry of Exonerees has documented over 1,000 wrongful convictions in the United States, and false or misleading forensic science is a factor in a huge percentage of those cases. They talk about how researchers have identified confirmation bias as a major culprit, and that's the unconscious tendency to seek out and interpret information in ways that validate your pre-existing beliefs. When we had my brain fog, what was the student in Italy,
Amanda Knox.
Amanda Knox on, she talked about that from her personal experience. We saw it play out not only with her, but with her boyfriend that she was seeing, and how the police like actually start to convince them that maybe their own memories are wrong, but they come at them in the way that they did, and they do this in all these cases because they're doing that. They're unconsciously seeking out and interpreting information in the ways that validate what they think happened.
Yeah. And I mean, here's how it works. and again, we talk about this constantly on our channel. This tunnel vision or confirmation bias is essentially cops decide early on who they think did it, right? I mean, that's just how it works, and often for good reasons based on statistics or initial evidence. But once that belief forms, everything gets filtered through that. So evidence pointing toward the suspect gets emphasized, and evidence pointing away from that suspect who they believe has done it gets ignored or explained away.
And I think Bobby mentioned this yesterday, that the scary thing is that most people doing this don't realize they're doing it. That's why it's called an unconscious bias. The investigators in this case could have, all right, genuinely believed Scott was guilty. But that belief led them to ignore 15 witnesses, to destroy evidence, the burglary connection, to dismiss the thing with the watch, to dismiss every alternative explanation.
Yeah. And look, the petition talks about research, and it cites research that showing once tunnel vision takes hold, it's characterized by, quote, escalating commitments. So you make a decision, you announce it publicly, you invest time, resources, and then the more invested you become, the less able you are to process information that contradicts your theory. You know what you do then? You double down.
We see
Double
it all
down.
the time.
You always double down on 11. You always
Right.
double down on 11.
Babe, I'm gonna have to let you finish and wrap this up because I have to get Scout to, it's Friday, it's football night.
Oh boy.
So I
Oh
gotta
boy.
get her over to her friends and gotta get her ready for all that. I love you guys. Bob will be with you till the end. Thanks again, and I'll see you later, babe.
All right, love you. Bye. So, and I'm wrapping it too. So bottom line here is, like, this thing is going to get played out. The state's going to respond, and we'll cover that the same way we covered this. And the state is going to address all 14 of the claims. And then we can all decide as a class whether or not we find that to be viable. Whether or not we say, okay, well, that challenges that. I'm willing to say, okay, they've explained away claim 1, 2, and 3. I feel pretty comfortable that those things are not a thing. So once that happens, we'll have a better idea of the efficacy of this thing. And but where it stands right now, the bottom line is it's pretty compelling. It's pretty compelling. It's far more compelling than what he filed in 2015. I'll put it like that. They've got some real teeth in this thing. They have, I mean, the DeVore thing is big, but at the end of the day, is that enough? Probably not. And I'm just here to tell you, if I had to truly predict based on the success rate of these types of petitions, it's probably going to get denied. It's probably, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this court isn't like the rest of them. Maybe they find that there's such a and it's not because I think that it should be. It's the way that the system operates, and I don't think it's fair. Like, I am always seeing petitions that I believe were rock solid getting denied. It is so hard to overturn a conviction in this country that it really is like moving mountains. I say it all the time. Once you are convicted, man, I mean, you were in for the fight of your life. You are in for the fight of your life. And if you don't have money in this country, good luck. Because if you can't scrape together money to get a competent, good attorney who is willing to buy in, or you can't get an Innocence Project to take a look at your letter that you send out amongst the thousands that they get, and a huge percentage of those are people that aren't actually wrongfully convicted. It's just like the system is set up to keep you in once you're in. So, we'll see how this plays out. It's definitely worth keeping an eye on. If this thing had come down and I'm sitting here, I'm like, wow, this thing's a steaming pile of shit. We're probably not going to even bother looking at the state's response. I think this warrants us following this thing through to the end. That's where I'm at with it. So, all right, that's our second part of the Peterson coverage. It is Friday for us here in the U.S. It may have already shifted to Saturday for our friends across the pond. I wish everybody a fabulous weekend. I hope that you have nice fall weather that you can get out and enjoy as we get closer and closer to Halloween. All Hallows Eve. We love it over here. It's a great, great holiday. And I want to remind you again, please, Buried. The podcast is called Buried Inside the John Wayne Gacy Investigation. It is spiking on the charts. The last we saw this morning, it was at 58. Let's keep moving it up. Let's get it into the eyes. I give you guys the example, the Netflix example. You go into Netflix, you made a great, great documentary. You're so excited it comes out and you get it on Netflix, except they don't list it anywhere. And you don't have the money to go out there and get the thing like marketed with big money. So we rely on you all. So make sure you're subscribing or following, give that a 5-star review. It really, really helps us a lot. And as far as our channel, please remember to share, like, subscribe. That also helps us immensely. And there goes my Scoutster. Like I'm not even on a live. Kid not a care in the world. Must be awesome to be a kid. All right, I love you. Have fun.
In my hair.
Huh?
Watch out.
What? Wow. Give me a kiss. Say hi, everybody.
Hi, guys.
All right. Are you going to the game?
Yeah.
All right. Stay out of trouble.
No
Watch
promises.
Watch out for boys. They're all creeps. All right, y'all. We love you. Like, share, subscribe. Wow. She's whispering, so I can't even hear it. And if you are replay crew, make sure you leave a comment. That really helps get us out into the algo, which really helps us. And thank you, mods. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Mandy. Couldn't do it without you guys. You guys are the best in the business, and I'll die in that hill. Remember to subscribe over or become a member, whatever it is on Discord. Tracy, tell me what it's called so I quit screwing it up. But go to the Seeking Justice Discord for all of your court file document needs. That's the spot. That's where you get it. Oh, wait, we had a new member, Shy Dandy. Oh, family hug. And then Gabriel, the Magalore Maine. Wow, that's fantastic. Sorry, off topic, but were the Medinas out of town? Why is the robbery date so contended? You are all awesome, by the way. Thank you, Gabriel. I mean, that was always, there's a battle because law enforcement and the prosecutors needed it to be on a different day. They didn't want to have anything like a burglary taking place across the street at or around the time that Laci goes missing, muddying the waters. So for them, the best way to handle it was to put it out there into the world with all the power of the media that thing took place after the disappearance of Laci, so that it's not a factor. And at that point, the defense is limited and they're not getting evidence. And I think the Medinas were out of town. I mean, that was the whole point. The whole point of burglarizing properties on Christmas Eve is a lot of people travel. They're looking for houses that are not occupied. As I said, burglars aren't coming in to try to get in gunfights or, get in a situation where they're going to end up having to harm somebody seriously. That's not what they're doing. They're trying to steal property when they go pawn, make money. So yeah, I think it's whether or not the court's going to look at the evidence that they have now about the burglaries. I mean, they're going to obviously look at it, but it depends on how much weight they're going to give it, ultimately as to, it's strange that is such an amorphous date as to when that happened. It's like that for me makes me suspicious on of the government. Like they're the ones who control the paperwork and calls that may have come in and things that happen. And when people are calling and saying, hey, we see this weird van, and they're losing 911 calls, and they're not preparing reports on witnesses that saw things happen and dating those, it's like all that stuff. It's disconcerting. It's sad. Just do shit on the up and up. Do shit on the up and up, and lawyers are going to have a really easy job. If the cops do everything on the up and up, we're not filing many motions. So, all right, y'all, we love you. Again, I hope you have a beautiful weekend. Subscribe to Buried Inside the John Wayne Gacy investigation, anywhere you get pods, Apple Pods, Spotify, Google Play, all of them. It's everywhere. Every podcaster has it. I guarantee you're going to like it. If you don't, I will give you a full refund. And maybe I'll send you a sticker. All right. I love you guys. Bye.
Hearts